Hi, I'm Joe Eager with Dow AgriSciences. This is the next bug we'll look at, and we'll start, it is an American bug, so we'll start by keying it using Ralston and McDonald, 1979. And again, first couplet there, scutellum covering most of forewings. Clearly the scutellum is not. And the second couplet, scutellum bearing large mesial spine or vertical plate. Again, there is no spine or plate on this bug. So it takes us to couplet number 3. Couplet number 3, metathoracic scent gland orifice near lateral margin of pleuron or distant from lateral margin of pleuron. And in this bug, it's hard to see, but the osteole is right in this area here. This bug actually has kind of a posterior facing osteole, so it's hard to see from a lateral view. But you can see it's very distant from the lateral margin of the pleuron. So it's not a phloaid. It also has 5 segmented antennae. It takes us to number 4. Couplet number 4 asks whether the Trichobothria are on a large callus located mesad of the spiracles, or whether they're not on a large callus. And you can see that here's the abdomen. There really are no large calluses. You can see the Trichobothria are probably easiest here, and they don't sit on a large callus, and they're not mesad of the spiracles. So this is not a Dinodorid. We saw an example in the last section of pronotum extending over the base of the scutellum, and clearly this pronotum doesn't extend over the base of the scutellum. That's couplet number 5, and so we do not have a tesseratomid. That takes us to number 6, and we do have tibial spines present, and they're pretty distinctive, and clearly this bug has stout spines on the tibia. So that takes us to couplet number 8. Couplet number 8, 4 tibia usually expanded, sometimes cultrate, with tarsi inserted midway of length, bearing lateral row of especially stout spines and less cultrate. Apex of scutellum usually narrowly rounded, and here is the front 4 tibia, and you can see that it's clearly flattened and modified for digging, kind of mole-like. It looks kind of like the foreleg of a mole. And here you see that the scutellum is narrowly rounded. So what you have here is a cydnid. The other choice, the 4 tibia is cylindrical, and I can show you that. Hold on. The other choice in this couplet takes you to family Cormolanidae, which is now considered to be Thyreochoridae. But the spines on the 4 tibia, or rather the 4 tibia in this group, is more cylindrical. You can see it's not flattened for digging. These usually are up on plants and not in the ground like cydnids. And the Thyreochorids also have an enlarged scutellum. They could easily be confused with scutellarids, but the spines on the tibia give them away. The scutellarids won't have those spines on the tibia. So if you've got spinosed tibia, and a large scutellum, you've probably got a Thyreochorid. Okay, now you've got a New World bug, and it's a cydnid. The best reference for identifying cydnids in the New World is Froschner's 1960 revision of the group. There have been some additions since that time, but his paper is still the kind of the Bible of New World cydnids, and it still does a very good job of getting you to most of the taxa and probably anything that would be intercepted. Okay, so we'll use Froschner, and we'll go to the key to the subfamilies of Cydnidae. This is on page 353 of Froschner, Cydnidae of the Western Hemisphere. Okay, the first couplet in this key, choices are clavi meeting beyond short scutellum and forming a commissure almost as long as scutellum, or clavi not meeting beyond scutellum and not forming a claval commissure. So if we look at this bug, the clavi are here on either side of the scutellum. They come down most of the way to the end of the scutellum, but they definitely don't meet beyond the scutellum, and there is no commissure here. And so this is not an amnestine. And the subfamily Amnestinae are very small, tiny little things, although they are intercepted fairly regularly. There are one or two species that come to light very readily, and so you could get those pretty easily. They are all New World, this subfamily is not found in the Old World. Okay, so you go to couplet number 2. Okay, couplet number 2, anterior tibia, strongly cultrate, much produced beyond tarsal insertion, so that tarsus appears to arise at the middle length of the tibia, or the anterior tibia not cultrate and tarsus arising at or very near the apex of the tibia. This bug here actually was described since Ralston's paper, and it's a Atarsochorus is the name of the genus, aptly described because the 4 tibia lack tarsi. And you can see this kind of a sickle shape for tibia. It's not anything like what we saw with the other cydnid and what I'll show you in a minute. So it's very different looking, and it's typical of the subfamily Scaptocorini. Now in our bug, as you saw earlier, it's got a flattened anterior tibia designed for digging, and you can see the tarsus is attached near the apex of the tibia. So it's not a number 3, it's not a Scaptocorini, and we go to couplet number 3. Couplet number 3, pronotum with a lateral submarginal row of cetigerous punctures, tarsal 2, subequal in diameter to 1 and 3. Or pronotum without this lateral submarginal row of cetigerous punctures, and tarsal 2 distinctly narrower than 1 and 3. But the cetigerous punctures are pretty obvious. You've got these setae along the sides of the pronotum. Froschner frequently refers to these as cetigerous punctures rather than setae because these things will break off. So sometimes the setae will be gone, but if you look, you can see these punctures here that are pretty obvious, and it's pretty obvious that they at one time had setae. So he calls those cetigerous punctures, and you'll see that used a lot in his revision. So we do have that submarginal row of cetigerous punctures, and this is the family Cydninae, the subfamily Cydninae. Okay, so now we go to page 380, which is the key to genera of Cydninae known in the Western Hemisphere. And the first couplet is anterior part of osteolar paratreme modified apically into a distinctly differentiated loop, lobe, or band, which is wider than basal part of paratreme and more or less polished. Now, Froschner calls all of the structures associated with the osteole the paratreme. So if it's a auriculate lobe, it's still the paratreme. So that's his terminology for the structure leading away from the osteole. And then the alternative is anterior part of osteolar paratreme without enlarged differentiated apical structure, sometimes with a small subapical posterior hook-like or flap-like projection. And this is the osteole is right in here, and you can see this is not modified. It's not larger than or wider than the basal part of the structure. So this is not modified. And so we go to couplet number 8. Okay, couplet number 8, pronotum anteriorly with deep, sharply impressed line paralleling anterior margin from side to side. This line usually in punctate. And the line they're talking about is this thing right here. It's a very distinctive thing. The genus is Pangaeus, and Pangaeus is the only cydnid, I think, Old or New World, that has this clear line, impressed line that runs in this area and runs across from one side to the other. You can get some groups that have a line of punctures or something else there, but this impressed line is very distinctive, and will get you to Pangaeus. Okay, there are 2 subgenera in the genus Pangaeus. One is the nominate subgenus, and the other is Homoloporus. And if you go to page 458, there's a key to these subgenera, and they're separated based on the mesopleural evaporatorium extended uninterrupted along posterior margin into posterior lateral angle, which is the subgenus Pangaeus, or mesopleural evaporatorium limited, separated from posterior angle and posterior margin of sclerite by polished area. Now what he means by evaporatorium is this kind of chagrined area. If you look at it, it's an area that's got a lot of wrinkles usually and a lot of surface area, and it's designed to get the scent or the chemical that's released from that ostiole to help it evaporate quicker, and it's usually an offensive odor, so it's protective. But anyway, the part he's talking about is right here at the posterior margin of the mesopleurum, and you can see there is a polished band here. This evaporatorium doesn't continue all the way into this corner, and so what you've got here is subgenus Homoloporus. And that takes us to page 459, key to species of the subgenus Homoloporus. Okay, page 459, key to species of subgenus Pangaeus Homoloporus. The first couplet, ventral surface of posterior femur with numerous scattered small tubercles, and posterior tibia of male distinctly angulate ventrally near base, versus posterior femur not tuberculate and posterior tibia of male simple. And this is the posterior tibia, femur, the bottom side, ventral side. And you can see there it's pretty shiny, it's pretty polished, there aren't any tubercles there. And the other character in this couplet, posterior tibia of male distinctly angulate, if it was angulate, it would be right in this area here. And you don't see any angulation, it's just straight and even. So that takes us to couplet number 3. Couplet number 3, juga and clypeus with complete submarginal row of pegs. Now the juga are the lobes on either side, and then the clypeus is the central lobe. And you can see here that there's no row of pegs running along the margin. So you do not have Pangaeus congruus, and it takes us to couplet number 4. Couplet number 4, juga with 3 or more satigerous punctures submarginally, surface of head neither strongly convex nor strongly rugose, and as opposed to jugum with 1 submarginal puncture immediately anterior to the eye, and dorsum of head strongly convex, usually with strong transverse rugae. See, it's hard to see here with the lighting, but the head isn't rugose and it's not strongly convex. But what is easy to see is that there are a number of setae, submarginal setae, along the margin of the juga. There's not just one seta anterior to the eye. So this is not rugiceps, and we go to couplet 5. Couplet 5 takes us back to that impressed line at the anterior margin of the pronotum, and your choices are that subimpressed line, subapical impressed line, has a row of distinct punctures. Are corium not allotaceous, or the subapical impressed line of pronotum is impunctate, and corium distinctly allotaceous. You can see there are no punctures along here. It's a pretty smooth line. It's not punctate. And the term allotaceous means that it's not shiny. It's kind of been dulled. And so here, if you look at the corium on this bug, it's pretty dull, especially when you compare it with the shiny surfaces of the pronotum and the scutellum. The corium is just a little duller and doesn't shine quite like those other body parts. So it is allotaceous, and what you have here is Pangaeus bilineatus. This, I think, was the most intercepted cydnid. Again, it's very strongly attracted to lights, and so I suspect it comes to lights at loading docks or airport bays, and that's one of the reasons it's frequently intercepted. It's not much of a pest, but has been reported to be a pest on a few crops like peanuts and chufas, and so it can be pestiferous, but it is a native U.S. species.